Long live
International solidarity!
Long live
International solidarity!
Thank you.
My name is Edith de la Paz. I'm a member organizer of Starbucks Workers United.
And we're here today at a conference prior to the APEC meeting in San Francisco. What does Starbucks United have to do with APEC, and what's your connection, and what are the issues that you're concerned about as far as APEC?
Well, specifically, on our board of directors is Microsoft, which is one of the sponsoring corporations of APEC. So whatever they decide in that boardroom will also affect us as Starbucks workers. But even more broadly, as workers here in the United States, we know we're going to feel the repercussions of whatever decisions they make, as well as workers from all internationally, like all of the different 21 country member economies that are part of APEC are going to feel those repercussions. So we're not just standing here as like Starbucks Workers United, we're here as like the working class internationally to be alongside other workers.
And what is the economic program of APEC that affects workers and you're concerned about?
Specifically, like all the contractualization. So historically, we know that when workers fight back and unionize or organize in their workplace, right, they'll either send off the company into another country. With Starbucks, it's already a global company, right? So it's already existing in the Philippines, in Thailand, in Mexico, and these are the APEC countries. So we know that like what we fear now is like them bringing in contractualized workers who now are going to be under different benefits. They're not going to receive the same thing that we're receiving. Our right to organize is not going to be respected. We're going to be fired. We're going to be retaliated. And it's a form of state repression because they also don't take care of us afterwards. Like we're off to fend for ourselves. So the contractualization and then even just like the deregulation of work too, like how they can't they don't necessarily need to schedule us an X amount of hours per work, even though when you get hired, a lot of times you're promised a certain amount of hours, but you're just given what you're given. So, yeah, these two things I feel like is going to worsen with APEC, but just generally too, this is another way for them to increase their militarization once we fight back. And we've already seen like the repression of firing workers, of silencing them, and that definitely ruins people's livelihood. So that's why we're here.
And the Starbucks workers have been trying to organize. They've had votes all over the country. Hundreds of shops have voted, yet the company still refuses to sign a contract and negotiate. Isn't that illegal?
Yes. And that's the thing too. It's like APEC, we have like not only like these corporations, but we also have these heads of states. If they really wanted to, if Biden really wanted to, right, he could apply pressure to the NLRB, he could apply pressure to Starbucks as a corporation. But we know that the government, because it's also a profit scheme, is going to back up their corporations and make these deals with these corporations in the APEC. So a lot of the federal laws that protect us are put there to quote unquote protect us, sometimes end up failing us. So we also have to apply that political pressure as workers and tell our state to actually protect us with the laws that they put in place to protect workers.
And the Democrats and Republicans, they're both control of Congress. They both support APEC. There's no politician that I know about that's saying that APEC should be abandoned or canceled, or they basically support this economic program, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the same with the Democrats and the Republicans, right? They both say that they support working class, the working class in the United States, but we know that's not true versus with their actions. Biden himself stopped the railroad workers from going on their massive strike. And Trump, when he was in the House or in the White House, he also shipped off a lot of corporations overseas. So either way, whether it's Democrat or Republicans, we know that we fail with them, and what actually wins us our victories is people power.
And these workers that have been fired and retaliated against it, it seems like Starbucks is not the only industry that's happening. Workers who try to organize a union all over this country are fired, thousands and thousands are fired. You think there should be a fired workers movement of all workers, because it seems like working people can't really stand up for right to have a union, even though they're supposed to have that legal right.
Yeah, we've seen this in Jollibee. I think some of the workers are here at the APEC Counter Summit as well. The Justice for Jollibee campaign, 9 workers had made a petition for holiday pay and better wages.
These are radical things.
Yeah, it's like fundamental things, right? Like the crazy part is like it's supposed to be fundamental things, but right now it's like radical things and like that change, right? And Jollibee is a foreign corporation, so they're coming here making more Jollibees, right? And these Filipino workers, also migrants, because they didn't get work overseas in the Philippines, are now trying to organize in these working conditions and then are fired for their demanding better pay. So we see that in Jollibee. We also see it in Trader Joe's. They fired one of the union organizers in the Trader Joe's United. And all across all of these new ways of like new labor organizing, we've seen like a lot of retaliation. And we find ways to like, be in solidarity with one another. But I think you're right. I think there's more opportunity to figure out how we can work together.
And one of the issues I know that Starbucks United has taken a stand on is the issue of what's happening with the Palestinians. And maybe you can talk about that, because right now they're bombing hospitals, kicking people off their land, and the United States government is basically saying it's okay. They're defending Israel.
Yeah. So we know that Starbucks, so Howard Schultz, our former CEO, but he still sits in our board of directors, is very pro-Israel. And so when we came out with our statement, at first it was just a tweet, but when we came out with our official statement, Howard Schultz doxed us all, essentially. He gave over a list to an organization in New York of 300, a non-comprehensive list of 300 stores. And I mean non-comprehensive because they were not all unionized stores. Some stores were non-union, and they also didn't have like an updated list of stores that were unionized. But he was like, these are the people that did that said that they support Palestine. These are the people you have to take it up with. If I could, like, I would fire them all. And so...
Isn't that illegal?
Yeah. And so Starbucks, like, even removed him as CEO, right? To save face. And they keep him on his board of directors. So he's, like, obviously really cares about Starbucks. Like, his company is his child. You know, he... In every chance he gets, he really tries to prove that he's not connected to Starbucks Workers United at all, and that's why they're also suing us, because when we made that pro-Palestine statement, they said that we're the reason for like people calling for a boycott, and people not knowing the difference between the union workers and then the company itself, but we meant every word we said in that statement. We wanted to uplift our full solidarity with the Palestinian people and their right for self-determination.
And there seems to be a growing strike wave in this country. Right here, we're at San Francisco State University. There's going to be a strike of the CSU maintenance workers. Yes. The faculty, getting an education is very expensive. It's been privatized. I mean, it seems it's all coming together with working people, that they've had enough and they're fighting all levels. Yeah.
I mean, even with Starbucks Workers United, we're going to have our second Red Cup Rebellion coming up this next week. So while, you know, the APEC CEO Summit's happening, we're also going to be striking back and be like, hey, on this day where Starbucks makes the most amount of profits, we're not working because you understaff us, you don't care for us. And then
the Red Cup Rebellion. What is that?
The Red Cup Rebellion. So Starbucks has this Red Cup Day. Essentially, you go in once it's like the holiday season time. You go inside, order a holiday drink, and then you get this like limited edition red cup. And so they come up with a design every year, and so you buy one holiday drink, you get a red cup. And because of like the phenomenon of like collecting Starbucks cups, people crowd the stores, people overwhelm the stores, and so it's a very stressful day for baristas, and a very historically understaffed day as well. So last year was our first Red Cup Rebellion, and we had our first national coordinated strike. Starbucks workers across the country with over 100 stores pledged to strike. And we're doing the same thing again this year. And it's not a secret. They know it's coming. We're preparing for it, and we're announcing it.
And are you encouraged that more and more workers are standing up in this country? I mean, it seems like there's workers, young workers especially, they don't see a future in this system. You have to work 2 or 3 jobs, just survival.
Yeah, there is no future. I mean, that's what I was saying. I was part of the panel that just happened in the summit, and what I was saying is we feel the effects of neoliberalism. It's not that we don't know it. We feel it every day in our lives. My brother has 5 jobs. I at one point had 2 jobs, right? And it's because of this gig economy that is being more and more influenced. And the gig economy is a nice way to put it, but really, like, it's a neoliberal economy, right? So you have to work for Instacart and Uber and Lyft, and you have to work all these different gig jobs because one isn't enough. But you think like, oh, I have this flexibility. That's how they sell it to you. But really, it's because you can only make so much in each company, so you have to move on to the next one too, and find the ways to maximize how you get money.
And also, San Francisco is the center of AI. There are billionaires here. There are over 80 billionaires in San Francisco. They're spending a lot of money for AI, and apparently they want to use it to get rid of workers. Goldman Sachs has said 350 million workers could lose their jobs. Are workers in your industry concerned about it, and who should benefit from AI?
The people should benefit from AI, but the way that it's being used is to make more profits. I wouldn't be surprised that, that's something that Starbucks is looking into. And again, like I said, Microsoft is on our board of directors and is also one of the corporations in APEC. So that might be some route that they're looking into to repress the barista organizing that's happening. I've heard of people go to AI dinners. Like, you basically pay a ticket for a AI chef to make you this meal. I've also heard of the little robots that come serve you in the restaurants now instead of waiters and hostess themselves. And so it's already in the food industry, and I'm sure they're trying to find ways to put it in the fast food industry, in the coffee industry, even more. But yeah, I mean, that's also why the workers of WGA were striking as well. So it's a concern for all industries, all workers across the nation, all across the globe, because they're trying to find more ways to profit.
Terry Vallon, I'm one of the international coordinating body members of the International Migrants Alliance, helping to bring our chapter here in the U.S. and part of the steering committee of the No To APEC Coalition.
And this APEC is meeting in San Francisco. They say they're going to bring good things to America and the world. What's the reality?
They've been saying that APEC has existed since 1989. We've had 3 major financial crises since then. It's devastating indigenous people, forcing people to migrate, exploiting workers. So the trade deals that they say are helpful for everybody in the world, making goods cheaper, takes away national sovereignty, people's self-determination, the ability of people to eat, food sovereignty. We went through a pandemic, and they want resilient supply chains, and that means putting workers on the line, their health and safety, their lives, because we need a resilient supply chain for the biggest corporations that are behind a lot of the trade deals by the biggest governments like the U.S. Imperialist government.
And some of the workers here have said that they're afraid of contracting out. Deregulation, privatization, is that a concern that you have and the organizers?
Yeah, those 3 basic tenets of neoliberalism, right? Privatization, deregulation, and liberalization. Lapida, we call it in the Philippines. It means a tombstone. So the death of, workers' rights, environmental health and safety, all of those things are impacted by the privatization of water, ports, electricity, everything in the hands of the biggest corporations who pull out when their profits aren't what they want it to be, and devastating people's lives. Liberalization of free trade, allow money to go in and out. What Brandon Lee talked about, the mining corporations can go in and out of the Philippines whenever they want. When they pull out their investments, the people in the economy are left with nothing. And then deregulation. So workers' rights, labor, and environmental standards are lowered by all of these trade agreements that make it easy and super easy for corporations to exploit and plunder the natural environment.
And one of the issues I know you've been involved in is the issue of seafarers, what happened during COVID. I mean, they were stuck on the ships, the tremendous exploitation of these workers in the seas.
Yeah, exactly. One of the pillars, they say, of this round of talks of APEC and what the U.S. is pushing is the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. One of its pillars is a resilient supply chain, meaning keep these workers working no matter what. There's a pandemic, people's health and safety is at risk. Keep them on the ships. About 25-30% of the seafaring workforce that moves 80% of the goods around the world are Filipino seafarers, and they were stuck on ships 10, 11, 12, 14 months at a time when their contracts are supposed to be 9 months or less. There were suicides, mental health, COVID outbreaks on these ships. And so we were trying to be out there about that issue. But APEC and this new Indo-Pacific Economic Framework continues those kinds of policies of forcing workers to work no matter, what their lives and their livelihoods are suffering from, because the biggest corporations need a resilient supply chain. And so we can't have that with these kind of trade agreements that force workers to work harder, the trade to go faster, and these seafarers especially to be moving these goods all over the world, all for the biggest corporations and not for the people. They can't live. And I was just at the port of Oakland, over at Benicia and the port over there, and the seafarers there didn't have enough food. They came from a ship from Japan. Their rations were going to run out in mid-October. They rationed it to the end of October, and we saw them. We brought them some Filipino food in the Bay Area, and the Japanese corporation would only give them $750 a day per head. Per worker. You can't live on that. You can't run a ship that way. And so they're exploiting these workers, not feeding them enough, all for the profits of that company that owns that ship.
And at the same time, there's the militarization of Asia. The United States has this Asian pivot. They want to militarize Asia. What does that mean for working people, this militarization of Asia?
Yeah, all of the issues that we're talking about, like indigenous people fighting for land, environmental rights and protections, they've been militarized historically, and there's now 4 additional military bases that have been set up in the Philippines by the U.S. in its trade war with China. So these trade agreements, like the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, or IPEF, is the way that the U.S. is trying to isolate China in the region. In those ways, the trade agreements are not just friendly economic deals and policies. They end up being military conflicts. So the remilitarization of the Philippines, Korea, Okinawa, the Pacific Islands, the bases in the U.S. militarization, and the pivot, like you talked about, this Asia-Pacific pivot is a way to counter China's rising economic, political, and military power in the region. And we can't have that because all of those guns and bullets and everything are exactly what shot Brandon Lee, paralyzed him for defending land defenders' rights. Those bullets and our U.S. taxpayer dollars are going to the Philippine military and police that are attacking activists, people trying to defend their land, fighting for workers' rights. There have been 2 recent killings of labor leaders in the Philippines. All of these militarization, both in the military and economic conflict between the U.S. and China, but also on the ground, people fighting for their rights, fighting for food sovereignty, for environmental rights, indigenous people's rights, and labor rights.
And China has said that it's an alternative, the Beltway that they're building. I mean, is it any different as far as you're concerned, or the APEC, the role of China in Asia?
So in the end, like these kind of trade agreements, these economic frameworks and, the RCEP and things like that are ways that they're trying to build their economic influence or control of the region. Trade routes, supply chains, markets, all of those things. So
ports, they bought many
exactly.
ports. Yeah.
So all of these things that they're trying to control, ports, passageways for goods, these are ways that they're trying to establish their dominance in the region, access to all of those things. Lithium is something that everybody's mining for these rechargeable batteries. So, imagine the devastation of indigenous lands and ancestral lands. So, China, whether it's China or the U.S., the RCEP or the IPEF, we're against those policies, trade agreements, trade deals that are setting up control by the U.S., China, whoever, over these resources, over these people's lives, over labor, over markets and things like that. So, we know it's a competition economically and politically, but it's also flaring up militarily in the region as well, the West Philippine Sea and things like that.
And what can workers in the United States do? I know there's a lot of struggles now, strikes. Workers are fed up with their conditions. There's a strike wave going on. What can they do around this issue of these economic programs or economic relationships that really hurt workers?
Yeah, it's powerful. The recent strike waves, UAW, Starbucks workers, folks are standing up for their rights as workers here in the United States, linking those struggles. And a lot of the U.S. labor movement, folks like the Communication Workers of America, are standing with Philippine labor. So they're making those connections, internationally.
The call centers.
Yeah, the call centers in the Philippines. So BN, the BPO Industry Employees Network, has connected with the Communication Workers of America. Powerful solidarity where they're not going to let, BN leaders like Alex De La Rosa's death. He was killed by, assailants and stabbed to death. And then CWA, powerful statement against that. Even went up to the AFL-CIO and others. Apala had a statement as well. So solidarity from U.S. workers, waging their fights and struggles, powerful strikes that have been happening, continuing to do those, and then connecting those. The Starbucks workers, and others, fast food workers, Jollibee workers are standing up for their rights here, migrant workers and local host workers, but also linking it up internationally with the struggle against things like APEC, which are exploiting everybody.
Okay, so we're here at APEC, and one of the issues that's happening for working people here in San Francisco is there's going to be a statewide strike of the California Faculty Association, the Teamsters maintenance workers at CSU, and we're with
Juniper Euclid.
Okay, Juniper, why don't you talk about the conditions here for workers, California Faculty Association workers here, and why you're going to be going on strike?
For California faculty, so those would be our lecturers and professors, I'd say the biggest issue is just a lack of respect here. I'm sure it's the same across the other CSU campuses. But with here, it's interesting to hear from our lecturers. They're not being kept in the loop, even with this union strike coming up. But their spring class cuts is the most recent thing. There have been 655 classes cut from our schedule, so that means about, I believe, 200 lectures, and there's only going to be more later on. So seeing our beloved lecturers, our educators, just being kicked out for money issues, even though we do have the money. It's proven that we have the money. It's sickening.
I mean, California's a rich state, over 180 billionaires in California.
Yeah.
It seems, I know California education used to be free. Students are going to debt, thousands of dollars to go into debt in a public university. It seems like this whole issue of privatization, deregulation is affecting workers here at San Francisco State University.
Yes, it absolutely is. We've been talking about that for a while, what it means to have a liberatory education. We had a bell hooks teach-in the other day. And so one of those things is free education. The access to education should be free, and it should be accessible to everybody, no matter your skin color, no matter your income, no matter any of it. And our Board of Trustees and our admin, all throughout the CSU system, clearly doesn't agree. They like to line their own pockets.
And the corporatization of the trustees,
Yes.
big business. Is there a connection between big business and what's happening with public education in California?
I mean, how could there not be? You look at it and it's so frustrating. The corporatization. We see all of these deals being made between the school and between these big businesses, and it's not for the students. It's never for the students. It's never for the faculty. It's never for our skilled workers at the campus. It's always for admin. They're just greedy, and they only care about themselves.
And it seems like one of the issues is that all workers coming together. I mean, there's a strike wave going on, UAW, I mean, many workers, academic workers at UC went on strike, but it seems like they're all isolated. And even here at San Francisco State, they're going to have a separate strike of the maintenance workers and a separate strike of the faculty association. Why not unity and uniting with students as well for open admission, free admissions, making the billionaires pay?
I mean, that's a good question. I wish that could happen. I think it would be so powerful to do something like that. I think a part of it is the unions have to be so secretive because of the admin, and they're just really busting down on unions and their workers. So I feel like that is part of it, but part of it is, as I discussed earlier, bureaucracy. And, when these unions have so many higher-ups, it's hard to work together. Not that they're only looking out for themselves, but there could be a little bit more outreach to other people in their community.
And getting the students involved, they're suffering as well for having to work 2-3 jobs, just as
Yes.
and homeless students here in San Francisco State University. Is that an issue?
That is absolutely an issue. the job thing, the tuition increases. In December, there are going to be parking restrictions over on Winston Drive, Buckingham, and just Lake Merced Boulevard, I believe. So those people in our community, some of them students, basically they will be pushed even further into this horrible
Or a condition of not having a home.
Yes, absolutely. So that is completely an issue. And then students, because students are workers too at the university, so we didn't have a strike, but we did have a rally about a month or two ago. So yeah, so even that, like all of these issues are not connected, even though it seems like they should be.
It seems that's the way to be successful, unite the entire working class and the students.
Yes, I agree. I know. I've been trying to work at it. I've been reaching out. The last month also there was the City College rally. I'd like to reach out there because it seems there that they have a more unified front with students and faculty. So I'd like to see how they do that.
People over profit.
People over profit.
No to APEC.